Welcome to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be discussing Friend Request. No, not from your ex-girlfriend or somebody you went to high school with, but no, a movie called Friend Request. It's about Facebook, you guys. I am the host of Bloody Good Horror. Joining me tonight, what I believe is a first-time combination here in the show, which is amazing because we've all been here so long. First up, joining me from Indiana, his name is Casey.
Hello.
I saw Casey refill his fat vape tank before the show, so I now am up on that whole process, so that's fun.
Yeah.
Yep. And joining us, rounding out this trio tonight, he comes to us from Chicago, Illinois. He likes to drink. His name is Joe.
Always true.
Hey,
All
Joe.
those things, once again, true.
Yeah. Joe, how does it feel to know that you turned a listener off from Bloody Good Horror last week?
I like it. I mean, so backstory for everyone. We got a review on iTunes where someone said they turned it off after the first 10 minutes because we were just complaining about hipsters like it was 2006, which I 100% appreciate, because I think it was the It episode where I think I was complaining about that movie about whatever the hell that other movie is that everybody hates, The Room.
Oh yeah.
Disaster Artist.
Yeah, and I started complaining, and it's like for Brooklyn hipsters drinking PBR, which again, like that's like 10 years old. Like I don't even know if that's still a
but
thing.
if you're, if he had hung out longer, he would know that dated jokes is part of the Joe shtick.
Yeah. If maybe he had hung on for like a couple more episodes and is listening to this now. Just know that I appreciate it.
You're literally you're literally still making Sophie's Choice jokes in 2017.
Yeah.
Which is a joke so old, like I guarantee 3/4 of our audience had to Google it.
Yeah. So
I'm pretty sure.
I can't say he's wrong, but
I'm pretty
Not to
sure
mention if you wait a couple months and you get to see the return of our own PBR drinking hipster.
Yeah. Like I only understand that joke because of Seinfeld, I think, as most people. So.
Sophie's Choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Making out during Schindler's List.
That's right. Yeah, that made me laugh this morning. That was fun. What else is going on at Bloody Good Horror? Joe, you want to talk about Tenya? There's a new thing has happened in the journey towards the Bloody Good Horror 10-year celebration.
Yeah, if you guys follow us on Instagram, that's Bloody Good Horror, just right there on Instagram. We posted up a picture last night. We got the t-shirts in that we made specifically for the event. Which is super cool. This guy, I'm going to butcher his name, Jeff Harkins, which I found out actually we went to the same college. He helped design those, John, buddy of his. So those are super cool. We're going to be selling them at the event, obviously. And then probably after, if we have leftovers, we'll be selling them on the website. Posters as well. They all came out really great, so they look super awesome. Again, for those of you not in the know, that's on October 21st up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. First thing is cocktails and trivia that we're having at the Great Lakes Distillery. It starts at 6:30, and then we're doing a midnight movie screening at the Oriental Theater, which is also in Milwaukee. And we're doing Reanimator, which is newly 4K restored, which I don't fully understand, but apparently it's going to look super awesome. And you can find tickets on our website, or if you just Google Back to Spooky School, which is what we're calling this fun, it's the first thing that pops up. I'm not going to rattle off the Eventbrite web here, but,
And we're officially a month away. Isn't that exciting?
Yeah. It's dope, as the kids are saying. I think everybody's pretty much booked their travel. We got 2 houses up there where all of us are going to be staying. And then one of our listeners who's on Slack is actually setting up like a Friday night meet where you guys are going to go do like spooky, like haunted meetups or something. I don't know, but we'll get an event posted for that. So, people can join in on that as well.
Yeah. And like we mentioned, so if you're a patron, you should have gotten already an invite to Slack. If you just ignored it or it got lost in the shuffle, you can always hit us up again. We'll get you another one. But
Yep.
you can get in there and join the channel called like Back to Spooky School or whatever, and yeah, you can kind of discuss with the other fans the stuff that they're planning and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
and this shirt looks super hella cool, Joe. I got it up in the video right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty great. I think they're all like this charcoal color, which I kind of like. That's just me.
Yeah.
But
No,
but yeah,
I'm into it.
yeah, they look dope.
It's not black. It's not white. It's in between.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's blight.
So, Joe, for a second there today, it was looking like this show is just going to be me and you.
Just a one-on-one conversation.
Which actually, I was
Friend
like, we
request.
can't do that. And then somebody was like, well, I think you probably could. And I was like, yeah, you know what, whatever. If it comes to that, I literally don't want to have to think about friend requests for one more day. So screw it. Let's do it.
Amen.
My plan was to just ask you questions. So here's the first one I was going to ask. Because, so you were not here last week. Is that right, Joe?
I wasn't on the mother episode.
Yeah, so we had a bunch of emails and tweets. People were just like really disturbed with how casually we all reacted to your nipple story.
Oh, well,
And we explained last week in the show, like that's because we all heard it like 10 years ago,
Yeah.
but it was funny, and part of the reason why I wanted you to reiterate it is that I felt like there's probably a very good amount of our listeners, since the show is constantly growing, who have never heard that story, and now they have. But let's tell me, Joe, how did you become a horror fan? Let's learn something about ourselves tonight.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
wow. Jesus. That took a completely weird turn. Like I thought we were talking about the nipples and then you bust out with the horror fan. Really, I mean, I have an older brother who's like I think 5 years older than I am. So it was like a Friday night, event every week where we would just go to the movie or the like VHS store and rent a horror movie. And it really like, they scared the shit out of me, but I wanted to hang out with my brother, so I would watch them with him. And then like over the years, just kind of got like more and more into it. Yeah, just kind of like desensitized to it pretty early. Like at an age where I shouldn't have been watching these things. Like I distinctly remember watching Christine when it first came out on HBO. So I must have been in like first grade or something, which is like super young to be watching that.
Yeah.
And like the original Friday the 13th and like all those movies, like we would just rent those. It was back in a time where I feel like parents didn't really pay attention to what kids were renting from the video store. Like, my mom would give us like $2 and we'd go in and just pick out whatever the hell we wanted.
For a while, my parents had, well, my parents, I say my parents, my dad didn't give a shit. My mother had a strict, like, no R-rated movie rule, which is funny because now I think about it, in the 80s, like, you could have boobs in G-rated movies or whatever, but I guess this was probably like PG-13 era, I guess. I don't even know when it started like mid-80s, so yeah, this is definitely PG-13. But anyway, so the first, I've talked about this before, but the first R-rated movie I ever saw was Total Recall, which is a doozy of there's just lots of things happening there for a young burgeoning mind. But then like once the floodgates were open, I think my mom just kind of gave up, and it was really like around 10 or 11 that I started like, there's a specific summer where I'd rented some Halloweens, gave myself nightmares, and then like every week I just wanted to go back because it was when they had a video store in the grocery store.
Oh yeah.
And so I would go and just like just stare at this thing the whole time my mom was shopping and pick movies out or whatever, and mostly watching by myself because like my friends weren't super into it. And it was like I was young enough where you didn't necessarily do a lot of stuff at night on the weekends, you know what I mean? Like you just play all day and then you go home at
Yeah.
I wasn't like hanging out at night, so and then I kind of it's funny like how much of the this is a pretty similar experience to a lot of people, but just the VHS rack has been how much it influenced me, and I find like odd comfort in it if you look behind me. Like literally, I think it was always kind of I think I always had this dream of like recreating the horror section in my video store.
What was your local one that you went to?
So there was the one like in the grocery store.
Yeah.
There was a place called Mr. Video, which you talked about before. And Mr. Video had the wall of Nintendo things where you took a chip off the wall or whatever, and then you had to bring it to him. And then the Creative Video was really good because they had 5 for 5 for 5, so like 5 movies for
Oh, yeah.
5 days
Yeah.
for $5.
I kind of appreciate your VHS because I really miss that experience of like going to the video store and like, you know, and
Yeah.
especially like Mr. Video, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like those like privately owned ones, because that's where you got like really weird stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, at like the grocery store, you get kind of the mainstream, but like
Those places just had personality too.
yeah, and like, you know, back then, like exactly what you're saying, like on a Saturday night, like, you know, you're 6 or 7, you're not going out. So you rent that movie, and whether it's shitty or not, like you're watching it. It's not like Netflix now where you can just watch 15 minutes and be like, oh, I'm done with this. I'll watch something else. Like,
Yeah.
you rented
Oh,
that
yeah.
movie, that's what you have.
Yeah.
They had that's funny because I remember my video store in my hometown. I always like to tell the story, but they it was Night of the Comet when that came out on video.
Oh, yeah.
I'd been going into this video store as a mom and pop store with my stepdad all the time. They knew me fairly well there, but I remember walking in there and I was kind of walking around, didn't see much, but the guy working the counter knew what I was into. So he called me up there. He's like, "Hey, I got something new. You want to check this out?" And he slapped Night of the Comet on the table. And he's like, "It's got zombies and stuff. You should take it home. Check it out. You like it." And I ended up taking it home and I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Man, a different time. Like
I
that,
know.
that would get you on a watch list now, I feel like, if you did that.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's because like we moved around a lot, and like, you know, we got to kind of move our own shit, and I have really pared down like a lot of my collection-y stuff, but I just like can't get rid of these. I've gotten rid of some of them. I pared it down a little bit, but I just like I find a deep sense of nostalgia and comfort in the VHS form.
It's funny. I never got attached to like the VHS format so much. That one never stuck with me like the movies from that time did.
Well, I don't really.
I get it.
I don't really watch them either. It's more of a tactile thing, like literally just like the smell and the feel, and like the artwork is so good. It was just an era of artwork that'll never really be now, especially will never be replicated because artwork now is a thing you see, you scroll by on Netflix when you're flipping through, you know.
Did your guys' grocery store ever get the robotic video rental machine?
No, like like old.
Mine had one.
Like pre-Redbox.
Oh yeah, it was late '80s, and it had you seen like the vending machines, the pop machines, where it has the thing that cup will come up on the side and it goes out and it kicks the pop out into the cup and brings it back and drops it down or whatever. My grocery store had one of those. It was big, rectangle, didn't look like anything crazy. You just had like it looked like a regular VHS rack inside of it, but it was all numbered, and you pick it and it had like a robot arm that grab it and drop it.
I bet you that was the loudest goddamn thing on earth.
Yeah,
oh yeah. I just remember being fascinated the first couple times walking in there when they put it in. It was like, oh, this is amazing. But it was like a year before it was already old and janky, and all the plastic was like clouded over, and it looked like shit and looked like it'd been smoked on for years. And
Never even heard of that. I didn't realize it was that thing.
Back when you could like, I don't know, smoke in the grocery store, I guess.
Yeah.
Good old days.
That's kind of amazing. I've never heard of that either. I kind of want to find a picture of that.
Yeah, I need to look that up.
It looks like. Yeah. Well, from old technology to new, fellas, we're here tonight to talk about friend request.
Should we talk about Tweet with BGH first?
Yeah. No, I'm reiterating why we're here in case
All
people
right.
forgot.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I think that if I say the movie title more times, the movie itself will start to come back to me because it's kind of gone from my brain already. So, it should be a fun conversation. Joe, you want to talk to me about Tweet with BGH?
Yeah, it's the new class, as we call them, the youngsters. They do it on it's almost like our old Spooktacular format. So it's streaming on the internets, and you can watch them discuss a movie as you can watch along with them. This time around, they're doing The House October Built, and they're going to be doing that on Sunday, October 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you've never joined in one of these, it's super fun. One, because you get to see their goofy reactions, but two, we got the chat open so you guys can kind of play along and make your own comments as well. But all around, just a lot of fun. Who is that? Sophie, Evan, and I'm forgetting someone, right?
I think it's Spencer usually.
Spencer, good old Spencer Pratt.
You might say he's indispensable.
Indispensable.
Although that's not true because I think sometimes they do it without him.
Yeah, he may not do it at all
He's
anymore.
dispensable.
Let's be honest. But it's a thing, and you guys should totally join in October 8th.
That's great. You know what else is a thing, Joe?
The internet.
Beer.
Beer is a thing.
Beer and
but
beer recommendations. And also this sweet bumper that Mark made you. So let's talk about this week's beer recommendation. Beer guts. Whenever you're ready, buddy.
Oh, so friend request. A heartwarming story about a outcast at a college who befriends one of the popular gals, and things go south, and she ends up hanging and burning herself, as has been known to happen. So this week's beer is not a beer at all, but it's from the good folks up at Sociable Cider Works in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And this beer I picked is called Burnout. A burn. So yeah, this is a cider, obviously, but it's a cucumber habanero cider. Yeah, I have recently, and I think maybe just because, you know, after a while, like you've tried just about every style of beer, like it starts to bleed into one. I've been on like a huge cider kick, and like specifically these like jalapeno or habanero ones. Like, I don't know, there's something about like the kind of crispness you get from a cider mixed with like a little bit of the heat that you're getting in the pepper. I just think like blends super well. Like usually with beers, it comes off as a little bit of like a gimmick, but I feel with ciders, like it really, they sort of balance each other out. And like this one, because it's also made with cucumber, like has like a really good sort of cooling effect to it. And it's just super great. Like we went up there and we went to the cidery, they call it, and tried a bunch of their beers. But this one, like I ended up like bringing home a growler of and like drinking a lot. And it's not like too overpowering with the spice. It, you know, like I said, it kind of levels itself out. So it's, you know, I'm sure it can be kind of intimidating to folks to see, you know, if you're not into spicy stuff. But it's like, it goes away pretty quickly and doesn't linger. And I was a huge fan of this. Comes in at about 6.4% alcohol. So, you know, just a little bit higher than kind of your average beer, but I think I drank like 12 or 13 of these and, you know, then drove around to the other places.
You didn't get any kind of Ring of Fire situation from that?
No. Well, I mean, we were also up at the state fair, so I was eating all kinds of god-awful things. So, you know.
It's hard to attribute what happened next with something specific.
Yeah, you can't really pinpoint what was the main issue cause of, you know, some of the reactions, but you know, in the past, like I haven't had trouble with these. And yeah, so there's a lot of these like cideries popping up across the great states. And you should definitely check them out if you see them. Like usually, you know, you get kind of your traditional, like they're a little more dry, but then, you know, they're starting to do really cool stuff with all of it. So I kind of feel like it's like the next big thing and like the craft beer, like craft, you know, trend. And I'm a huge fan of it. And gluten free for you glutenites out there.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like cider that much, but it's all right.
I'm not, you know, there's kind of like the name brand ones you see, which I've never been a huge fan of. But then like once I started to discover some of these like, you know, smaller ones that put out, you know, like different styles and stuff, like
I like when they endeavor to make them really dry and like not overly sweet. Those are kind of interesting to me for sure.
Yeah, that's I was about to say, like I'm not super into like the overpowering sweet, which I feel like with a lot of like the reds or whatever, like that's what you get. Because I feel like they're trying to compete with, you know, the alternatives. But like you get like these cideries that make like a bunch of different styles, and like a lot of them are on like the drier side, which I think, you know, a lot of people can appreciate.
We should turn this into the Joe recommends alternatives every week.
Alternatives, yeah. Next week I'll be doing a Dat, not your father's root beer.
It's like mama alternatives guts.
I like it.
What are Joe's personal flavors of fall he's got going on right now as far as drinking?
Oh man, so we finally, well, it's weird because in Chicago for the past 4 or 5 days it's been like 90 out.
It was 90 here today in Boston.
Yeah. Ridiculous, but finally it's kind of dropped. And over the weekend I started to pick up some of the pumpkin beers. Like I'm a huge fan of the Dogfish Pumpkin. Like I always, when you see that on the shelf, I always feel like that's kind of like the real start of fall. And we've also got like all the Oktoberfest beers out, which I'm a huge fan of, especially if you like maltier beers. Like those are totally, you know, up your alley. I think I drank like a 6-pack of the Brooklyn Oktoberfest the other day, like just hanging out playing Dungeons and Dragons.
When I was still drinking beer, like kind of towards the end of it, I took a real liking to the Sam Adams Oktoberfest.
Oh yeah, they're
Yeah.
great. I mean, we've talked about it before. Like Sam Adams, I think puts out great beer. Just the trouble is it's so, prevalent, or you can find it just about everywhere. So you're kind of at the whim of whatever restaurant you're at, if they're like cleaning the taps and if like the kegs
Yeah.
are new, like, it's tough.
Yeah, you could usually buy like the jumbo case of the Sam Adams Oktoberfest at Costco this time of year.
Yep.
It's usually a safe one for your maintenance beer.
Yeah, it's good. But the trouble is, like, then you'll still see that in like liquor stores in like February and March. And by then, like, the beer started to taste like shit. But
Interesting. You know, Joe, I learned something here every week.
it's fun to learn, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah. That's the beer recommendation, something Joe brings you every week on the show. It is time. Let us take a quick break so that we can review Friend Request.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Got the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back. No word of the day, because John Schnars is not here, and I was busy for the show. So there you have it. Joe, you want to tell me?
Yes.
Tell me what this movie's about.
I mean, we kind of talked about it with the beer, but in short, I'm just going to read the IMDb page because I feel like that's what John should probably do anyway. A popular college student graciously accepts a social outcast online friend request, but soon finds herself fighting a demonic presence that wants to make her lonely by killing her closest friends. So in short, it's this girl, sees kind of like the loner and like the quote unquote loser girl at college. The girl kind of befriends her and then friends her on, their version of Facebook, but then gets super clingy, goes a little overboard. The girl unfriends her. The girl ends up hanging and burning herself at the same time.
Yes, it's coming back
and
to
then
me now.
Demon magic starts going on, and then the whole thing kind of focuses on the fact that like this girl from beyond the grave is dwindling down this gal's friends on the face blogs, mostly by posting the videos of her friends being murdered on her Facebook page, and people just saying like, that's disgusting, why would you do that?
Right,
And
it
then they
looks like
unfriend her.
it looks like the girl is doing it, and then there's this repeated graphic where horrifyingly they show her friend total going down.
Yeah.
Which
that's-
is like
that's
I gotta,
Which
I gotta put
actually-
in a correction there. They're getting ghost murdered.
Oh,
which
yeah.
actually I didn't realize how hilarious that whole thing is until like just this moment when I said it out loud. That
Yeah.
Well,
that's
the whole
like
thing, like, and I guess we can kind of talk about thoughts. Like, it's funny because I saw this with my wife, and after she's like, so pretty much the point of that was like, if you lose all your friends, you're pretty much dead and alone.
well,
Yep.
here's the thing. I've been thinking about this movie a lot because like I think a lot of people wrote off the other one we did too, even before seeing it. That was like, it's similarly named
Unfriended.
Unfriended, right?
Unfriended, yeah.
But like, there's something I think that whenever, especially like us older horror fans, we see a movie like this that's about technology in this way, we immediately groan and roll our eyes. And I don't totally know why that is. I think it's probably mostly because these movies turn out most of the time like shit. But like, they're trying to get to the core of like modern day anxieties, right? So you look at like Friday the 13th, and the anxieties in those movies are about, they're like about sexual anxieties, like diseases and stuff, and they're about, transgressing and isolation in a lot of ways, right? They're about like fear of isolation. You're in the woods, there's a killer, you're isolated. But like, so then when you're looking at modern young people and the way modern people live and you're trying to scare them, like isolation is kind of impossible in a lot of ways, unless you like really try to do it. And so this is a movie that's trying to use the opposite idea to scare you, which is like the power of our connectivity, but also like the way that your whole social life depends on that connectivity. And then the fear is the fear is like the girl trying to erase this other girl's friends list, which really at its core is like her connection to people around her. And like, I don't know, I actually think that there is some way to to talk about those anxieties in a really interesting way. This movie is totally not that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But I was thinking about it a lot during the movie because I'm like, actually, like, I think it's wrong for horror fans to just like scoff at these movies about kids on computers or whatever. Because like, I'm on a computer like 18 hours a day, dude. When I really think about it, like, this is oddly some way more relevant to my life than most horror movies. Like, I'm not hiking in the woods. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, there's also the angle of it too that for a certain age group that number of friends and stuff that they have on Facebook is a major part of their identity. Whether it's good or
Right.
not, that's something they identify with that we don't. So
Yeah.
it loses its effect on us some.
Sure.
I mean, I think the trouble too is like, especially now where things change so much, like this movie's gonna be so dated in like a year and a
sure.
half.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, 10 years ago, this would have been about like MySpace or like Friendster, and you know, it's gonna make no sense. And even like, I mean, we can talk about it, but like, there's a lot of the animation in this, which looks like, I actually kind of like the way that they spliced it in the movie, but it
Yeah.
definitely looks like some kids like Flash art project
It's
that
very-
they, you know,
it's-
went to
Yeah.
college.
It's very Adobe Flash. It's done well. I actually
Yeah.
kind of like the way it was used too. But yeah, it's funny. It just has
It's
that
funny.
look. It has that look to it. Like you can see the animated layers. You know.
Well, it's hilarious because I thought that was going to be part of the story when they started showing us those videos of Mina, that there was going to be something in this story about how that was her major, and why she had these creepy animations and stuff on her Facebook, because that's what she was going to school for, which is conceivable, but no, we didn't get that much story.
Yeah. What'd you think about this, Casey?
It wasn't good.
Yeah.
To put it bluntly, it wasn't offensively bad for me. It's not what I walked away from angry about, but at the same time, I was checking my watch a good way chunk into it, and I was happy it was over. I walked away rolling my eyes like, yeah, that was kind of dumb. It had some potential. It had a couple good ideas. It had a couple good performances. It just wasn't all tied together at all.
Joe.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with Casey. I think as far as like terrible movies we've seen, like this, I wouldn't put this against like The Bye Bye Man or anything. Like, I don't find it that awful, but it's definitely like forgettable by all
Yeah.
accounts. Like Eric, I think you're even struggling to remember what the hell it was about, and we're like 3 days after it. The dialogue I thought in this was like super weird. Like, there's a few instances where these cops are around, and like the one cop is like, he's a dick, but he says like really weird things at like inappropriate times. Like when one girl's like laid up and like looks like she just, got the shit kicked out of her, which, she kind of did by this demon. And he's like, oh, it looks like somebody had a bad night. It's like, who
Yeah, like
says that?
like
Like over like a,
He's fucking cracking jokes.
yeah, it's super weird. And even like my wife and I were laughing at a lot of parts. Like, I think the first time where I think her name's Marna, like pops up and like starts doing spooky stuff, the main character kind of freaks out and her boyfriend wakes up, and they're trying to like fix her Facebook page, and the boyfriend's just like, she's dead, and the girl's just like, I know. Like, it's funny because this director is German, and the movie was filmed in South Africa, and a lot of it felt like it was a translation of a script that they just read like verbatim, even though they knew that these words didn't fully make sense. Like,
It's
it was a little broken English.
Phonetic. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
It was filmed in South Africa with a foreign cast, like foreign to not U.S. people. So it looks to me like there was some dubbing done to maybe cover up some bad accents. Yeah, this movie like kind of ticks off a lot of my pet peeve boxes. And it's not even about the technology stuff, because the technology stuff is actually like, okay, like I kind of can see what they were going for with the use of some of that stuff, but it's more about the fact that when you boil that away, it's just another angry ghost movie, which people know is one of my bugaboos. Is like when you boil all the like dressing off of this movie, all it is a story about a sad ghost who you have to try to help them, or they're going to turn you into a sad ghost. Like, that's kind of the entire story. And also, I think the jump scares in this movie are like a travesty in a lot of ways. Like, just just the worst of uncreative, lazy, overly loud, like obnoxiously loud jump scares. And they commit the cardinal sin, which is that they have jump scares that the characters don't even see, like jump scares that are intended solely for the audience. And that
Yeah.
to me is like so fourth wall breaking. I just find it a really bizarre choice to make. I don't know. I think if you watch this, if you're just like somebody who likes bad movies and you have a friend you like to watch bad movies with, there's kind of some funny stuff in this movie. Like some of the scenes I think
Yeah.
approach like so bad it's kind of funny territory. But you really got to be into that kind of thing. Like it's not for the
Yeah,
faint of heart. I
it
don't
might not
think.
be a bad one to watch just as like a group and like goof on. Like to me, the hands down my favorite line of this entire movie is when like stuff starts to go off the rails and her friend is trying to get her to like remove these videos, and she just comes up and screams like unfriend that dead bitch. And like this girl died like a day ago, and
Yeah.
like everyone in the room is like, yep, okay, that makes sense. Like
Also, we're all just gonna pretend like her 35-year-old friend is in college. Is that what we're doing? Like everybody's so old in this, except like there was the one couple that where the guy dies in the elevator.
yeah,
I'll call them the chubby couple only because that's how they refer
Uh-huh.
to themselves.
the chupple.
But like they looked really young, but everybody else looked way too old for this movie, like to be in college.
Yeah,
I
it
did
was-
like the boyfriend's line when he's trying to get his girlfriend to get his chocolate covered macadamia nut something or other cookies and whatnot. He's like, just tell him the chubby white kid that's in there all the time wants him. He'll know what it is.
it did start with kind of like a fun tone, and then like pretty much once they introduce Marina, who's like the loner, it starts to take like a weird turn.
It did. It
So-
turned into the worst kind of ghost movie where it's a slasher. It's literally just like slasher scenes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but not even with like, and this is rated R, and I fully think that it's rated R because they drop like a handful of F-bombs. Like it's not overly gory with the exception of a couple scenes, but like it's not even a slasher where you get the like the satisfaction of watching like someone be stalked or like actually seeing a slasher.
Right.
Most of it takes place in like you talked about, like an elevator where stuff's happening to the guy that you can't even see, but then like
Yeah.
they show it on like a video later. Like they don't really show a ton, which kind of makes you think like they easily could have like edited this a little bit and made it PG-13 and probably gotten a bigger audience.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because it's when you're going for that slasher feel, you got to have those fun kills. That's what you're there for, to see a rated R slasher for.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
So
you want to
this-
see Jason beating two girls in a sleeping bag against a tree.
I was just looking at this. So they came in 7th on Box Office Mojo with $2 million on a $10 million budget.
I was wondering, like, what did they spend
So,
10 million on?
I don't know, man. That's crazy.
I mean, other than,
Facebook
like, the
licensing.
yeah, like well, they
Adobe-
didn't because they
Oh, that's right.
definitely did a good job of like hiding the fact that like this wasn't Facebook.
That was all in Adobe Flash licenses, so they can
Yeah,
have
exactly.
a team of
They had to pay out the ass for like the one Adobe Flash animator that's left out there.
a team of animators.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So Joe mentions that this starts off kind of fun, but it cracks me up because the beginning of this movie is where when you get to the end of this movie and you look back, is where I have the biggest problem. And I'm figuring we're getting totally spoiler here for the most part, because we're not going to recommend you to go see this. But the movie starts out, which they show in the trailer even, but very start of the movie, they're in class, the professor comes in, and one of your classmates committed suicide, and they mention the girl's name, and they all go, oh shit, and then it flashes 2 weeks later, or 2 weeks previous, and they go back 2 weeks, and then you see everything leading up to it. Why did they do that? There was nothing in the story that led up to why we had to see that previous 2 weeks. We could have just started at where the 2 weeks started and progressed through and been like 5 minutes shorter.
It was like a weird cut. Like I'm not really sure what the point of like jumping back was.
Yeah.
There was nothing in the story. There was no twist that made just that. There's no aha moment where you got to a point where it crossed over the modern line. It just went through the story.
Who was that teacher? Was that guy somebody?
There's a lot of things that don't make sense in this movie. Oh my god, the teacher. So he made me laugh because like, there's 2 scenes literally in a row, but it's just like it's kind of illustrates kind of how badly structured the movie is, where the teacher has to tell the class that a student died, and he has this like measured kind of speech about like I have bad news, one of your classmates has died, and then we immediately cut to another like slasher ghost stalking scene, and then we cut back to him in the class being like, well, I have some bad news, and he starts it off the same way, and I thought like, wait a minute, are we like flashing back to his first speech? And it was like, no, we just felt we needed to show the professor giving a speech about a dead kid twice.
Yeah.
It's very strange. It feels very strange.
And again, like that scene is kind of the perfect example of like that weird script where it felt like I was watching something dubbed over. Like,
Yeah.
that totally should have been in German or something.
So what did you like anything about this movie, Joe?
I mean, I kind of talked about it. Like, I actually liked the way that they kind of weaved in the whole like Facebook aspect. Like, it was kind of interesting because where it wasn't just like you weren't watching over somebody's shoulder, like browse around the internet or anything. Like, they actually kind of spliced it in with the actual movie, and like the animation kind of flowed in. And again, like it looked kind of dated, but I actually thought it was like a cool idea to like sort of show how they were online and doing these things. But I mean, then they just kind of like left it, and you know, dropped all like those animations. I mean, I guess they kind of tied in towards the end, but like I want to say, like I was talking about it after, and I'm like, you know, I actually kind of liked the way that they used the technology, but then it just it didn't really go anywhere and kind of left me.
The yeah, it's interesting. Like the animations are actually kind of cool, and they I in my head I was thinking it's like I could picture these guys in a room saying like, what if the tape in the ring was a Facebook page?
Yeah,
Because
that's
it's
not a
kind
bad
of what
idea.
it is. It's kind of like this girl's page is kind of cursed, and like, you know, they do funny stuff with the trappings of the technology, like, you know, the scene is so cheesy when the guy brings up he's looking at the code from the page, her friend, and he's like,
Yeah, it's like
this
this
isn't
isn't
code,
code.
and it like literally, you know, when you hit whatever it is, inspect or whatever on your page, and it pulls up a pane with like the HTML, but instead this pane was filled with what I can only describe as matrix hieroglyphics, like
Yeah.
scrolling past the
Yeah.
page. And it's just a really funny. He's like, that's not code. This is code. And they,
To,
you know,
Now, to be completely fair to them, I've seen in the other screen that he was showing the correct code and all the text was still moving and stuff there. I have seen that text editor in action before.
oh yeah, well that, right. Yeah.
I mean, to me, my favorite part of this movie is like when it boils down to it. The point is, if you don't befriend the weird, creepy, you know, outcast kid, you're gonna be fine, because like if you do that, then the kid's gonna do some like sort of weird
Right.
witchcraft stuff, and then you're gonna end up getting murdered. So
Yeah.
really, just stick with the pretty people. Do not venture outside, and whatever you do, do not invite the weirdo into your little circle.
Right. All this happens because she's nice and tries to like befriend
Exactly.
this girl. Yeah. So the other thing that they do that I think kind of ruins like any narrative tension is that what develops, or what everybody eventually figures out, or like her friend kind of figures out, her like hacker friend, that so the girl has committed suicide and is dead and is kind of haunting everybody, and the people are kind of dying off one by one, and the hacker friend kind of puts together, oh, she doesn't want to hurt you, she wants to make you be alone so you can't die, you're the only one that's safe. And I'm like, great, so the movie literally just told me its main character is not in any real danger.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I understand the losing their friends part, but like you don't care about those people, and the idea of the girl losing her friends who like we just jumped into the movie. We don't have any connection or context for her life, so we don't really care about that either. You know what I mean?
No, and it comes up kind of laughable because like in the corner they keep showing like her friend count, and like it's dropping slowly. And again, like it sounds terrible, but to me, like it felt like this millennial thing where it's like, oh God, no, she's gonna run out of Facebook friends. Like, you know, the clock strikes zero, and all of a sudden, like that's when the bad things happen.
Well, and the only real consequence comes from after like the second time her like ghost hijacked account posts video of somebody dying, the dean like suspends her, but it's kind of just like a quick scene and that's it. There's something kind of funny though about like there is something interesting, right, about the anxiety of like, what if you like tweeted the wrong thing and ruined your life, right? Like that is something
Oh, yeah.
that is something we
Yes.
see happen all the time. And this is different because she's not in control of it, but I think that anybody on social media does have to be aware of like, what if I go to DM somebody and like post this horribly offensive thing, or like say, or just like out myself in some weird way. And so I think that's kind of what the movie is trying to play on, because there is a lot of like her seeing the post, and this has happened, right? You send an email you didn't mean to send to somebody, and you're watching it as you're trying to hit undo or whatever, and she's trying to hit cancel, and it is kind of a funny like cheesy thing. It just keeps saying like, there's an error, like unspecified
Try
error.
again later.
Try again later. Yeah. But I
Yeah.
think that there is something real to that anxiety, of that digital anxiety of like, I just sent this thing out and I can't get it back. And I just fucked up, you know?
Well,
Kofifi.
that goes back
Coffee
to
thief,
your
yeah.
point about like them having to turn this into a stupid ghost story, because with the same idea of what you're talking about there, and they even make a reference to Anonymous in here because their edgy computer guy friend Kobe's into Anonymous because that's his avatar on the Facebook or whatever it is. But in this area, you could make a real horror film about somebody taking over your social media and posting shit like that without you knowing it and you having no control on it and ruin your life that way. It could have been very realistic that way, but they have to shove a ghost into it.
Yeah. Well, then it wouldn't be a horror movie though. It would just be like a after school
It'd be
special
a thriller.
on a very special episode. So yeah, I think that the movie sabotages its own chances for tension in a lot of ways. That could have been like fairly easily fixed with just better narrative choices.
Well, there's one scene where she's going to the funeral, which I think like at that point like three or like four people have died, and they just decided to like pile everybody into the same funeral, even Marina, who nobody knew. I liked it because do you remember in the church, like they had her three friends, like pictures of them, and then like slightly off to the right was Marina, just
Yeah.
kind of like, well, I
And
don't
it was
know.
the shocker reveal. It was the shocker reveal when she walked in because she's like, "Oh, there's my friend's picture, and Marina."
So like during that scene, you kind of get some of the everyone's looking at her like, ugh, like what's wrong with you? You keep posting these videos of people getting murdered. So like that kind of made it real. But then like after that, you really just go back to like a small counter in the corner of like her friend list like dropping, and it's
Yeah.
like there's not a lot of tension there when you're just watching a number go down.
Yeah.
I really
Well,
love.
I mean, she spends most of the third act not even at college.
Mm.
Right. Not at college where you would actually. So, right. You'd actually be seeing the consequences of her sort of social ostracization.
Yeah.
Like if she was still at college, but then they take her out of that situation. Then in the third act, we get some like really Scooby-Doo ass investigating going on, where we discover that this girl was an orphan who was at an orphanage, and she was being kind of like, she was weird from this kind of time she was born, so she was being bullied by some kids, and then I'm trying to remember the rest of the reveal from there. We can just spoil it. I don't really care.
Yeah, she was bullied by these kids, and then you find out that she ended up like burning their faces or something. And then it gets a little weird because like it has something to do with this old factory, which turns out to be where she hung and burned herself because they never actually found her body. Which again, like they ruled it a suicide, but like nobody ever found a body. And this is a video that was just posted online, which easily could have been faked. But like everyone's like, well, I don't know, I guess she's dead.
I'll just have a funeral for her.
And then like this was also my problem. Like they kind of said it had something to do with witchcraft, but they never really explained how or why. Like they talked about her mother and like how her mother had died and she was like still in the womb for like 3 months or something ridiculous, which just physically doesn't seem
And there was
possible.
some-
Like
Oh no! Basically,
There
that
was
they
something about them living in a cult compound.
no, it was,
Yeah.
it was basically that the mother was brain dead, but they were like keeping her alive with machines so that the baby would come to term. Listen, I'm not clear on the science there, but that's kind of what they were getting at. And then there was some line about how the cop was like, "Oh, what a poor girl. She was like alone before she was even born," which is kind of the most brutal thing I've ever heard. But like, it's just kind of cheesy in the context of the rest of the movie. But I was like, yeah, that's messed up.
Just a born loser.
Yeah.
But I'm not wrong in that on that throwaway fact that her mom was in a cult, right?
Yeah, there was some sort of, well, they didn't even say cult. They just said like some sort of weird group, I think.
I'm going to be honest. I drifted a lot during this movie.
Mm.
There was one cool thing I thought they did, and actually, like, Cece could probably illuminate this for us a little bit, but they claim that, like, black wasps are, like, a thing with witches, and that they protect them or something. And so, towards the end, when she kind of starts being, like, physically embodied, there are black wasps everywhere that, like, attack people.
Yeah.
That was kind of a cool little touch, I thought. Made it kind of scary.
There's something.
Yeah.
It's definitely something.
And then what happens at the end? Remind me what happens at the end.
So her friend list ends up going down to 0, and pretty much the whole twist, or I don't even know if you want to call it a twist, but like the popular girl is now the loser, and she's kind of been inhabited by Marina's demon, like whatever was going on in there. So now the whole idea is that like this is all starting again, because they show her sitting in the same cafeteria, like dressed all, gothy or whatever, and then like looking at one of the popular girls, and it seems like now they're going to become friends, and this whole thing's going to start over.
Yeah, and it was really weird because there seemed to be a strange insinuation that somehow like this was a cycle that was starting over. Like I don't know, it was weird because we just saw all this crap about the girl's origin story, but then I had this weird moment of like, well, wait, did she get it passed on from somebody else? And I think it was just a little confusion in the way that they said
It was super confusing. Like they really didn't explain
I don't think
it was definitely not clear.
Yeah, like, I don't think that's what they intended, but I just don't think they kind of stuck the landing on it too well.
No, they didn't stick the landing on it at all. I got to think at some point, because they kept talking about a scrying mirror, and they can put themselves in, the witches can put themselves into the scrying mirror with this thing. I'm guessing Marina came out in Popular Girl's body and Popular Girl got stuck in the ghost world, and the thing is what I'm guessing. This movie did not explain that in the slightest.
Right, there was like mirrors or something, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then something about black mirrors. If you kill yourself in front of a black mirror, this would have been another good CC question. She was supposed to be here tonight, but I screwed up.
And her monitor, though, her laptop monitor was her black mirror.
Right. There's a lot made of like looking at screens when they're black, so you can see your reflection.
Yes.
So that's a whole thing. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this. Do you guys have any other scenes you wanted? Oh, I did want the elevator scene is one of the funniest things I've seen this year, which is
just like bashing his face against the wall.
A kid kind of pretending like he's being controlled to like bash his face into the wall of an elevator and doing it like really hilariously bad. That was pretty fun.
I did get a good laugh out of it too, though, and his girlfriend showed up with the groceries to hit the elevator button, and the door opened. You saw the blood on the wall, and you figured you'd see his corpse, but they stand there and linger for a minute, and then you see him run by again.
Yeah. Yes.
Poor fella.
That is true. All right, guys. This might be the shortest episode of Bloody Good Horror that ever happened.
You're welcome.
Do you recommend Friend Request? Yes, no?
Who? No? I don't. I don't know who you're talking about.
Well, sure. Anybody. All right, guys. That's going to do it. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
Linda Githens, age 22. Valerie Hoffman, age 24. Mary Ann Stevens, age 21. They are all victims of the Toolbox Murders. The Toolbox Murders, a true story. Rated R.
Hey, this is Ken Foray. Make sure that you tune in to Bloody Good Horror, the best horror you'll ever find in the United States or internationally, Germany, England, Italy. It's all happening right here in the United States. Bloody Good Horror. Ken Foray and out, baby.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back.
Who the hell was that? I've never heard that one before. Is that new?
What's that? That was Ken Foree from Dawn of the Dead. It's an oldie.
Oh, right.
It's an oldie but a goodie.
That is amazing. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
I just think when he
it's all
says,
happening here in the U.S.
yeah, you know what that is? That's a cool cat.
Yeah,
That's what that is.
that's a lot of rambling.
That's a guy with some swag. Joe, you have some Toolbox Murders memories?
That's so funny. I don't think I ever saw the trailer, but I remember me and my buddy renting it from like one of those local video stores. And I specifically think we rented it at least 3 or 4 times just to watch that weird tub like diddle scene where there's like, I don't know, have you ever seen it?
No,
Like,
it's funny because I was just thinking, I feel like my time for seeing that has passed me. Like, I'm good
Yeah,
now.
probably.
But there was a period in my like late teens, 20s when I probably would have been way into it, but I don't know.
Yeah, that was exactly when I saw it. And
Yeah.
it's weird because this whole, whatever scene is going on. And there's like this weird sort of country music playing in the background. So like it's supposed to be like sort of hot, but then there's just like like going on. It's super weird.
Nice.
But not an awful movie.
That was another Toby Hooper, wasn't it?
Toby Hooper did the remake. I don't think he directed the original.
Okay.
No, the original, it was like super low budget.
He did the remake with Angela Bettis
Yes.
from May, which I've seen. It's decent. I'm going to look it up because we got plenty of time.
1978, yeah, the original ones.
Who directed it?
Dennis Donnelly.
That guy.
Who I am not familiar with.
My favorite.
Oh, that guy.
My favorite.
Oh,
Dennis.
He directed a bunch of episodes of the A-Team as well.
Oh.
Simon and Simon. Oh wow, good for him.
Simons.
You know what? I got to turn in my geek card because I didn't realize that was a remake. I was thinking of the Toby Hooper one.
Oh,
about
Casey, you're fired.
Look at that.
Angels,
out.
Heart to Heart. Wow, pretty much Simon and Simon. Every show I watched in the 80s.
What is Simon and Simon? That like sounds.
Simon and Simon they were like private investigators and they were brothers.
Yeah.
You'd probably know him if you saw him. Like one guy had, who was it? I forget the guy's name, but he had like this super porn mustache.
Yeah.
It was Major Dad. That guy.
Yeah, it's Gerald McRaney.
Yep, there you go.
Wow. Okay. Major Dad. I remember. I definitely watched some Major Dad.
Simon and Simon had this awesome theme song, which I'm pretty sure I had on a 45. Mm-hmm.
Jameson Parker.
What the hell's that guy doing now?
It's
just fun for the listeners, I bet.
Info at
Yeah.
bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. I don't actually have a lot of emails to read because this one I want to save for Schnars because it's all about how awesome I am. But at the end he does say, can the crew please review the Cash Me Outside Girls new rap song?
Oh shit. Yeah, we absolutely can. I gotta check that out.
I did see that she got signed to a label, Joe. That seems right up your alley.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can still, like, it's been months, and if I walk up to my 6-year-old and say, Cash Me Outside, she will, like, Pavlov's dogs, like, just, how about that?
Wow.
Okay. Being a parent's great.
Yeah. This is from Ailey, who says, thanks to Cece for reviewing The Killing Ground on the BGH site. I'm surprised it even got an American release as it's only played in small independent theaters here in Australia. I just saw it today. I thought it had some scary moments, but maybe that's because the setting looks like it could be an hour's drive from my house. Like Wolf Creek, it has reaffirmed my vow to never go camping again. Thanks for the great show and more Cece, please.
Yeah.
So naturally we'd read that on the first show she hasn't been on in like a month. But she'll be back next week. She was supposed to be this week, but I had to cancel last night. It was a whole thing. Whole thing. Info@bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. We're also on Twitter at BG Horror with the dueling hashtags AskBGH and BGH Classics. Joe?
Eh.
I got him. BGH Classics, for those of you listening to old episodes, this is where you can tweet up some of your favorite quotes or stupidity that we do with the hashtag BGH Classics. I wasn't on the last episode, so let me know if you guys have done these before. But did you do this from at Skizbot? He was pederass.
Yes.
It's got more zip than... All right, let me jump ahead. You did the one about me and boobs? Because I really like that one.
Did we do the one about you?
Joe's annoyance with boobs and the Paranormal Activity too.
Yes, we also did that one.
All right. Okay, so this one you probably didn't. Library Congress. Mark, I'm gonna call shenanigans on either my decision making or my alcohol tolerance. Episode 56, Mother of Tears.
That movie was bad.
Same guy, same episode. Mother of Tears. Eric. This would have been amazing to watch with friends and some beers. Unfortunately, I have no friends.
Hard truth. Still true.
Hurts. Next one, or next three are actually from @_J3SS. There's a lot of baby splitting, more than most movies, and that's Schnars. I don't know what episode. She didn't say. Next one, Fuzzy Wuzzy was a web designer, which I'm assuming was Eric talking about Mark. And then one more. I feel like Confusing Erection should have been on the DVD cover.
I've said that about several movies, but yeah.
Yeah. Next up from @Joe_Reader.
Maybe that's just a personal thing. A problem I have.
Just be on your LinkedIn profile.
Confusing ones.
This is episode 372. Helen back. Mark, do you really want me to explain trigger warning? And then Joe, kind of. Is it like jizzing?
Yes. Yes. So I recall this now. Joe didn't know what trigger warning meant, and he thought it was some weird, dirty thing.
Me and the wife, like, legit had the same conversation last night, and she said something about how, like, I hate the word trigger, and I'm like, yeah, like, it sounds like, you know, you're about to jizz or something, right? Like,
I actually, like, 100% remember this now.
Yeah, I stand by that statement, too.
Yeah.
Like, all right, next up from @Robel, an emailer, Ryan Reynolds bangs Scarlett Johansson, so that makes him cool in my book. Eric, yeah, if you like horses.
Wow. Oh, I said the horse part, yeah.
Yeah, episode 198.
Yeah. You know what? I've come around on ScarJo.
Yeah, for sure.
I get it now.
Then last up @Skizbot, Eric, my friend Chris told me I looked like a frightened hamster. Mark, shockingly accurate.
Yeah.
That was episode 54. Let the right one in.
It's true. It's true.
Fuck, the dog is freaking the fuck out.
They do that.
All right, and then over to Ask BGH, where we post up every week, and you can send in questions or comments or just have a jolly good time. First up from @King Township Fit, what horror villain would you not accept as a friend request from? Freddy for bad jokes, Samra, too many video shares, other?
I don't have an answer for this.
No, I really am opposed to accepting any requests from people I don't actually know. So I, probably all of them. Although I feel like
I actually thought about this one.
Jigsaw would probably just post up like stupid memes and stuff constantly, and like fun little riddles. And I feel like I just
it would
don't need to
always
deal
be
with
like,
that
let's
bullshit.
play a game. Be like, no, I don't want to sign up for your stupid Facebook
Just
game. Jigsaw.
enough, okay?
Yeah.
I was gonna say Chucky because he'd be the one that shows up, like on anything right after my mom comments on a picture, and he'd be like, "I'm gonna fucking kill you!"
Oh, constantly, and probably with like just bitching about the knee taking thing constantly, and like whatever. Like I just don't want to hear it. Next up from @Nukem_McD. When Mark comes back, can he spend 20 minutes reading the movie guides for the past few movies he's missed?
Just all of them, just bang them out all at once.
That should really just be like a one-off episode.
He would love that because he's always like, "Can we do the movie guide?"
Yeah, it's like spot on impersonation. It was like he was back.
Thank you.
Next up from @JD_Berg. How come Joe wasn't on the Mother episode? I was more excited for his Danzig impersonations than the actual review.
Yeah.
Shaking my head.
I got one in there, but it's not quite the same, Joe.
Yeah, I get it. Although, to be 100% honest, I would have felt like it was forced, so I probably wouldn't have done it.
No, you would.
I had things to do.
You would have.
Yeah, probably.
Because it was like a very confusing movie, and we had this very confusing conversation, and I feel like you would have just devolved into singing songs.
It would have been a lot of bad puns, I think. Like,
Yeah.
you know, did she tell her children not to walk his way at any point?
Right.
Oddly enough, next up from @Biddle Brian, Papa, can you hear me? Veiled attempt to get Joe BGH to sing Barbra Streisand. There you go. Next up from @Leah Bridges.
How do you feel about Barbra Streisand, Joe?
But I got no problems with her. I am a huge Neil Diamond fan, so I enjoy You Don't Bring Me Flowers a great deal.
Okay.
I don't know if I told this, but like my parents, last time they came, I got a record player because I bought a record. And my parents saw that I got one, so they brought me like all their old records. And not once in my youth or growing up did I hear my mother ever play a Barbra Streisand song. But in their record collection is like 7 or 8 Barbra Streisand records.
Oh, wow. Did you listen to them?
No, I haven't listened to any of them yet. But like, even when I was looking through them, like I never heard you even mention liking Barbra Streisand. Why do you have so many records? And there was no answer.
My mom really liked the Judds.
Oh yeah, love can build a bridge.
It was a period of time, man. They were the thing. The Judds and Garth Brooks. That's my mom.
Oh fuck! I slept outside to get Garth Brooks tickets.
Shut up.
Actually, outside Leader's Video, right by our house.
Wait a second. When was this?
I mean, this was when I was in probably middle school, maybe even elementary.
So
it had to have been middle school, but yeah.
It was like at the height of his powers.
Oh yeah, for sure. And back when like you had to sleep outside to get tickets for something.
This is pre Chris Gaines.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for
That's
sure.
when it all started going downhill.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Next up from @Leah Bridges 16. Why is America putting out crap, remakes, or candy horror while other countries are scaring the shit out of us for years now?
I don't know. I think that's a bit of a mischaracterization. I think there's a lot of great indie horror happening. It's just that, you know, we tend to, when there's stuff in the theater, we try to do it. So that stuff is very amply represented on the show. But
yeah. And I think also like over here, we probably don't get all of the garbage horror movies that maybe they get in other regions. Like if it gets over here and has like a buzz to it, like that's when you watch it. But you know, there could be just as much shit in the theaters over there.
Yeah.
But I have no idea. I could be wrong about that.
Well, I think that's a fair point though, because it's got to be like above and beyond by the time it's drawing attention over here. So there's probably a lot of stinkers we're not seeing.
Joe, if anybody's right about a place he's never been to, it's definitely you.
Absolutely. If anyone can make just wild generalizations. Next up from @Mesmuff24. Why do you think it is doing as well as it is? I can't wrap my head around the box office numbers. I assume we're talking about Friend Request, which I don't think it's really doing that
terrible,
good.
so I'm not sure what they're talking about.
No, I think he's talking about It.
Oh. Why do you think It? Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Why do you think It?
So read that again. Read that tweet again.
Why do you think It is doing as well as it is? I can't wrap my head around the box office numbers.
I think it like I said it's pretty simple. Like I said during the show, I think what they stumbled into the fact, and I'm not even sure that the people who made it maybe realized it at the time, but I think that it is in the public like zeitgeist. Like I don't care if you've seen that horror movie or not. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s, like that image of Tim Curry is burned into your brain. Like even if you just saw a commercial for it and it scared the shit out of you and traumatized you for life. And so I think there's a lot of people now who are grown up and we're really excited to see that story reimagined. It's definitely, I mean, it's made, I'm looking at it right now. It's done 266 domestically million.
That's crazy.
Which is,
but I think it's also, I mean, we talked about it on the episode.
I thought it was going to do good, but that's even higher than my expectations.
I mean, I think it's pulling from a lot of like the same nostalgia that like Stranger Things is also. Like, I mean, we talked about it on the episode. Like, it's got the same sort of feel, and like people are like eating that up right now.
I mean, all of the things that Stranger Things is really nostalgic about are all of the like things that Stephen King's type of stories helped build.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Oh yeah. Definitely, the Stranger Things comes straight out of Stephen King's wheelhouse, and so they're playing back to it. And I think they really made a smart move of splitting this movie into two, with the kids in the first half, because it really gives it that Stand By Me effect and really gets the homey feel to it. And really helps people connect to it and everything. And it just draws people in, and then the word of mouth starts spreading. And I think they hit it right at the right time because it's coming out right just before October. And people are getting in the Halloween mood, and people are like, yeah, because we haven't had a really strong Halloween movie for a while. Granted, it's September, but it's still pretty close.
Yeah.
Speaking of, did you guys get the trailer for Jigsaw before this?
Not this time, but I have seen it.
Oh man.
Yeah, it doesn't look great.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting that they're bringing it back into theaters. They must think that they've got something that can pop a number. So
We'll see. Next up from @Witchy Kitchen. What's your best / most interesting / memorable food scene in a horror movie?
food scene, God.
Poltergeist, the steak on the counter
Yeah.
with the maggots.
I'm gonna go Dead Alive. The custard scene is like the
Oh,
most disgusting. Like I
Oh,
can't
God.
even. I can barely think about it now.
What's that? I don't know which
That's a good one, too.
Nightmare on Elm Street it is, but like where he like force feeds that girl.
That's part 5. That was the Dream Child we were talking about last week because it's referenced in it.
Yeah, like I always thought that was kind of
That
funny.
has the
and
pizza
then
scene too, where their
little faces are.
the heads of the souls that he's taken are like pepperoni on the pizza.
Yeah, that and all of Poultrygeist.
Poultrygeist, yeah, there's some shit in there.
All right, we got 2 more. Next up from @Skizbot. Is it possible for this movie not to age poorly? Oh, how we think so fondly of the thrills and chills of classics like Stop, which were ghouls and specters sent spooky messages to unsuspecting telegraph operators. Is that real? That can't be real.
I mean, I think the idea of these things aging badly is super interesting, but that's also just like technology is advancing at a much more rapid pace than it was in the 1980s. Like it was advancing quickly in the 80s because we were already the beginning of like the computer revolution, but it's infinitely faster now. And so it's a trade-off you have to make. Like if you want to make your movie contemporary, it's going to have things in it that are going to get dated quickly. The flip side of that is that you ignore all technology altogether and you try to just get a really raw human experience that's universal to time period. But then I think that you risk losing a little authenticity to like people's everyday lives.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's tough. Like even
too,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think too, this movie will help. I don't think this movie's gonna age well. I think it's gonna help Unfriended age well, because especially when the people talk about that there's 2 movies that were similar, everybody's gonna go to but what was the one that was filmed on the computer screen the entire time?
I also think,
and I think that's going to help take the kitschiness over the top in the future. For the nostalgia, I think is going to suck them in. It's like, oh, you remember when that's how we used to use the computer?
Well, think about the way we love 80s technology. I could totally see people looking back at something like Unfriended and like getting into that kitschy nostalgia value for the technology. But the other thing is that movie, like, you know, it's on a computer, but it's all about video chatting, which like that's going to be an omnipresent thing in the technology of the future. It's going to look different. But I find it hard to believe that, you know, I think the Facebook stuff will probably age harder than just video chatting, you know.
That's going to be a technology I think like people 20 years from now can probably still relate to, whereas like who knows what the hell Facebook will be by then.
Yeah.
And it's also like kind of like you said, like it's tough. Like you watch a movie from 5 years ago and someone pulls out a flip phone and you're like, oh, this is fucking ridiculous now. Like stuff is just jumping ahead so quickly. All right, last up.
I used to love that.
You're kind of damned if you do.
I used to love my Motorola Razor.
Yeah, the Razor, like that was like the biggest thing. Like I worked at a company where we were doing like small microsites for Motorola, and like there was such a huge explosion behind the Razor, and like now like you pick that up and it's like, what the fuck is this?
When I was in high school, my senior year, all the rich kids had Razors.
Oh yeah, like I said, I was at like my 3rd job out of college, working on the websites for it, so that's cool. Last up from Dick Drivers _CA. Did you see the trailer for Creep 2 yet? The Return of Peach Fuzz.
No, but we heard it. Like I saw the announcement, but I haven't seen the trailer.
Oh yeah, somebody posted on Slack. I watched it today. I gotta say, I wasn't a huge fan of the first Creep, but this one looks pretty promising. Like I'm kind of excited for it.
Yeah, I have not watched that yet, but I am excited to go see it.
Dude, have you seen the first Creep, Casey?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
I was on
yeah.
that
No,
episode. It was good stuff.
I really love the first one. That's a really weird, creepy movie.
This one looks a lot.
At this point, I'm kind of, especially like with the creep movies and stuff at Mark Duplass, I'm kind of down for whatever he's throwing out there. He does some fun stuff that's not mainstream.
Yeah.
Something about his face. I just have trouble looking at it.
Yeah, he looks like a hawk.
But he also looks like he's always joking. So like in Creep, like I had trouble taking him seriously at any point.
Like if Hawkman's mask was just his face.
Yeah.
That's what he would look like.
That's it for the Twitters. Yep.
Cool. At BG Horror. Anything else you want to talk about, Joe? We have time. You got to rap about anything? What's going on in your life, Joe?
I don't know. I'm getting ready for spooky season. I'm very excited. I think we're doing our first pumpkin farm this weekend.
Oh, have you had any more? Have you had any more PSLs since we talked?
Have I? No, actually, I've only had the one. Like I said, like it was like 90 this weekend.
Oh
I
God,
I wasn't gonna go get like a hot pumpkin.
It was
spice
like
latte.
ridiculous. It's gonna get better here, but it was ridiculously hot today. It's unbelievable.
Oh yeah, like today was the
Yeah.
first day like it actually dropped and like everyone's kind of excited and losing their shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 79, I think, today, and it was exciting.
Casey, what do you got planned for Halloween this year?
Don't know yet. My life's been a blur because of the stupid test, which is next week, and then I get to actually like disengage from that and get into it. So I think we're gonna start pulling down Halloween decorations and stuff this weekend and start putting stuff together. So we're
Yeah,
excited
that's
for
our
that.
plan. We're setting up the house. I'm very excited.
Nice. Very nice. All right,
You
guys.
know,
I got nothing else. 2 firsts here at Bloody Good Horror tonight. First of all, the first combination of these 3 people ever. And I'm willing to bet the shortest episode of Bloody Good Horror that's ever been recorded.
I feel like there was
Hey,
one
Joe,
other
yeah.
episode where it was all 3 of us.
yeah, there was only 3 of them before, but it wasn't the 3 of us.
Yeah. All right.
Joe, I had a proud dad moment the other last night. My daughter asked me if she could go see Guar.
Oh shit! Is she gonna?
No, because it's 21 and over only.
Ah.
That stuff's pretty intense. And I'll be honest, like ever
Yeah,
since
I know.
Odorous died, like they released some of the new songs. It's not great.
All right, guys. Friend request. That's going to do it for this show. Next week, speaking of terrible remakes, we are going to be reviewing Flatliners, starring one Miss Ellen Page.
Wah, wah.
So we'll see what she's doing with Kevin Bacon's legacy here.
Yeah.
That's going to do it. Don't forget to check out, go to bloodygoodhorror.com and search, look for the Spooky School link and get all the info you need about Bloody Good Horror tenure. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the show. We'll talk to you next week.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.